You're most famous, of course, for your time spent in the kitchens of the royal family.
He once moved silently through gilded halls, preparing meals for monarchs while secrets simmered behind palace walls. Darren McGrady, the royal chef trusted by Princess Diana herself,
chef to the Queen, Princess Diana, Prince William, and Prince Harry,
held back his truth while the world speculated and narratives were carefully shaped. For decades, he watched in silence as Camilla's image transformed from scandal to queen. But now, at 63, that silence ends. What he reveals about Queen Camilla isn't just surprising, it's shaking royal circles to their core. And the story he tells is anything but polite. Shadows of Diana, amid Camilla's rise. Before we uncover the bombshell Darren McGrady dropped about Princess Diana's tragic fate, we need to first walk through the storm of emotion and opinion that erupted in the days leading up to King Charles's coronation. Because without that backdrop, the full weight of what McGrady revealed might be lost. Less than 48 hours before the historic ceremony at Westminster Abbey, the atmosphere outside Buckingham Palace was thick, not just with anticipation, but with unresolved grief. For many in Britain, the sight of Camilla preparing to be crowned queen didn't feel like progress. It felt like betrayal. To them, this was supposed to be Diana's moment. Instead, the woman once labeled the most hated mistress in Britain was stepping into the role once unthinkable. A poll taken just days before the coronation revealed that only 14% of Britons supported Camilla being called queen. Her approval ranking, staggeringly low, trailed behind every senior royal. Yes, even behind scandal-ridden Prince Andrew. The numbers told one story, but the emotions beneath told another. For a large part of the public, Camilla's crowning was less a celebration and more a haunting reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Patrick Jephson, Diana's former private secretary, captured that sentiment with painful clarity. Writing in the Daily Mail, he admitted that while the nation was expected to rejoice, a strange chill hung over the occasion. For those who held Diana close in their hearts, the people's princess, forever young, forever adored, this wasn't just another royal affair. It was an alternate ending to a story that never got closure. Behind the gilded walls, rumors swirled of inner conflict. During a pre-coronation dinner, it was whispered that Princess Anne bluntly reminded Camilla to her face, "You're the Queen's consort, not the Queen." If true, those 6 words cut through the palace's carefully orchestrated narrative, a reminder that even among royals, the title came with a bitter edge. And how did we get here? Slowly. Over decades, the palace played a game of public persuasion. At first, Camilla was just a close friend, then an unavoidable companion. Next, the unspoken lover. There would be no separation, then no divorce, then no remarriage, and absolutely no talk of her ever being queen. But reality shifted with each passing year. When Queen Elizabeth herself, on the 70th anniversary of her reign, gave her blessing for Camilla to become queen consort, it was seen as the final green light. Still, even then, she was never called simply queen. Until now. And yet in the emotional theater of Westminster Abbey, with the Spencers seated only rows away, Camilla's past seemed to linger in every silent glance. Diana's presence, though absent in flesh, loomed unmistakably. Would she, had she lived, have made peace with this moment? Some, like Paul Burrell, believed she might have eventually come to terms with it. Others, including Patrick Jephson, remained doubtful, suggesting it would have depended on how she had been treated in life. One thing, however, was painfully clear. On the day Camilla was crowned, Diana remained queen, in the hearts of millions who never stopped believing she should have been. But even as the world was still absorbing the spectacle of Camilla's coronation, an unexpected voice from Diana's inner circle stirred a wave of unease. Darren McGrady, the former royal chef who once served Diana with unwavering loyalty and affection, stepped forward with words that many didn't see coming. In an interview released just before the May 2023 coronation, McGrady said calmly, "Time has passed. I believe it's possible to honor the present while still cherishing the past." But was this a message of grace or a quiet betrayal hiding behind royal diplomacy? Keep watching. Darren McGrady's unexpected coronation remark triggers public outrage. For someone so closely tied to Diana's memory, the statement sent shockwaves through her devoted supporters. To them, McGrady had long been a custodian of her truth, and now, it seemed, he was toasting the woman they blamed for her pain. Outrage spread quickly online. "How can you raise a glass to the woman who broke Diana's heart?" one commenter demanded. Another echoed, "Loyalty means standing firm, not rewriting history for the sake of civility." For all his years of silence, McGrady's measured words had reopened a wound, and in doing so, deepened the divide over whether the past should be honored or quietly laid to rest. For years, Darren had remained conspicuously quiet whenever Camilla's name came up. His deep connection to Diana was well known. He had cooked for her, listened to her, and stood by her side during some of her darkest hours. His silence had always felt like a silent vow of protection. So when he publicly endorsed the coronation festivities, even if mildly, it felt like a sudden shift. A man once regarded as the quiet custodian of Diana's memory now appeared to be extending goodwill to the very figure once dubbed Britain's most hated woman. It was more than just surprising. It was deeply unsettling for those who still felt Diana's absence like a fresh wound. And for many, the memory of Camilla's affair with Prince Charles was still too raw to overlook. The betrayal that played out so publicly in the 90s hadn't simply faded into history. Even as late as 2005, a YouGov poll showed that only 7% of Britons supported the idea of Camilla becoming queen. Yet now, in 2023, she was officially crowned, draped in royal regalia, as millions watched. Under pressure from furious fans and relentless headlines, Darren responded. "Supporting the coronation doesn't mean forgetting what Diana endured," he clarified. "It just means I've grown older. Perspective changes." But the pushback had already opened an old wound, and some say awakened a new purpose in him. Not long after, McGrady did something he had never done before. He broke his silence. With a startling candor, he began to share stories he had kept to himself for decades. Stories that painted Camilla not as a redeemed royal, but as a cold and calculating figure in Diana's suffering. Whispers turned into revelations, and those who once accused him of betrayal began to wonder. Had he held back all these years, not out of loyalty to the crown, but to protect Diana's legacy until the world was truly ready to hear it? Diana's kitchen confidant. As the whispers of betrayal grew louder beyond palace gates, one man inside the royal kitchens saw the quiet unraveling long before the public ever would. When Darren McGrady arrived at Buckingham Palace in 1982, he was just a young, inexperienced chef placed at the very bottom of a 20-person kitchen hierarchy. His days were filled with repetitive tasks, slicing vegetables, prepping frozen sides, and learning under the watchful eye of Gabriel Tchoumi, the stern French head chef who ran the palace's culinary world with precision. That same year, Diana, the Princess of Wales, had just given birth to Prince William. The palace buzzed with tradition and expectation, but none of it prepared Darren for the surprising bond that would form between a humble chef and a future icon. What made Diana different was never her crown. It was her warmth. At Balmoral Castle, during summer retreats, she often wandered down to the kitchens barefoot and in her robe asking for snacks for herself or her young sons. Yogurt, orange juice, maybe a piece of fruit. She never barked orders. She said, "Thank you." Sometimes, she even helped clear the plates. It wasn't the behavior of a royal. It was something more human, more real. Darren, though always formal in his greetings, began to see her as more than a distant figurehead. She brought a lightness to the palace that made the stiff air around it feel less heavy. Diana had little daily rituals, one of them being her fresh juice each evening, carrot, celery, or apple, whatever suited her mood. But as her marriage to Prince Charles started to deteriorate, those rituals began to disappear. The smile she once wore so naturally became harder to find. One night, she didn't ask for her usual drink. Worried, Darren made it anyway. She drank it in a single swallow, her eyes puffy from tears. No words were needed. He could feel the pain that lingered behind her silence. Long before headlines confirmed the affair, Darren was witnessing its emotional toll. By the time Diana officially separated from Charles in 1992, she had moved out of Buckingham and into apartment 8 at Kensington Palace with William and Harry. Darren thought it might be the end of his time with her until she called and asked him to become her personal chef. Life at Kensington felt lighter, more intimate, but not free from sadness. Camilla Parker Bowles still loomed in the background. Some insiders even claimed she'd privately celebrated the separation, once bragging to friends, "He's officially mine. He always has been." Whether Diana ever heard those words or not, she never let her pain harden her. Even on her lowest days, Darren recalled, she remained gentle. She didn't lash out. She kept her kindness. That, he said, was the real Diana. Not the princess in public, but the woman who carried herself with quiet dignity when no one was looking. But what if Diana's true strength lay in her quiet dignity, even as Camilla's shadow loomed? Stay glued to your screen. The Shadow Princes. Diana couldn't escape. Yet beneath her polished exterior, Diana's private world was often fragile, burdened by emotional wounds that even the grandeur of Kensington Palace couldn't mask. At times the walls echoed with the soft hum of sorrow, moments hidden from public eyes but etched in the memories of those closest to her, like her trusted chef, Darren McGrady. One evening, as he cleared the dinner plates, Diana lingered in the kitchen, not for food, but for solace. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper as she admitted what had long sat quietly in her heart. "I always knew I would never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be." Darren froze, struck by the sadness behind her calm tone. But Diana didn't want sympathy, just someone to hear her truth. Gently wiping away a tear, she added, "You only had to listen." Her words carried years of heartache and betrayal, stirred by the constant presence of Camilla Parker Bowles. Even when Diana tried to create peace, Charles's affection remained anchored elsewhere. The palace, with all its formalities, couldn't drown out the arguments, many sparked by Camilla's name, echoing through the grand halls like unwelcome guests. McGrady, though just a chef, felt the pain seep into every corner. The tipping point came in 1992, when the Camilla-gate tapes surfaced. The intimate recordings between Charles and Camilla set off a media wildfire, validating what Diana had long known but had tried to hide behind her composed smile. Though she never spoke to McGrady about the scandal, the shift in her was unmistakable. She grew quieter, more withdrawn, and visibly uninterested in food. Her eating disorder, which she would later publicly confront, re-emerged during these emotionally charged periods. McGrady never intruded, but he watched her struggle in silence, knowing she was fighting something deeper than public scrutiny. In 1995, when Diana sat down with the BBC's Martin Bashir, her words, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," rattled the world.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
But for Darren, it was not news. It was confirmation of the agony she had carried alone. And yet, from the rubble of heartbreak, Diana slowly began to rebuild. About a year into her life at Kensington, McGrady noticed a quiet transformation. The sadness in her eyes started to give way to something stronger. She took control of her health, her narrative, and her future. The woman who once wrestled with bulimia was now conquering it. She hit the gym 3 times a week, proudly declaring, "You take care of the fats, Darren. I'll take care of the carbs at the gym." Her meals became cleaner, her preferences clear. No beef, minimal fat, lots of fish, and vibrant vegetarian dishes like her beloved stuffed bell peppers, often served with smoked tomato sauce from the garden. Garlic, unlike in the Queen's kitchen, was perfectly welcome. The kitchen became a haven. Some days, Diana would stroll in early, ask for lunch, and sit nearby to watch Darren cook, swapping light conversation about her day. Other times, she made coffee for them both, breaking down royal formalities with warm gestures. Though their relationship was defined by roles, there was an easy camaraderie. The official menu book was often ignored. Diana liked spontaneity, often requesting liver and onions or her favorite vegetarian dish instead of what was scheduled. And when Prince William and Harry joined for meals, the kitchen buzzed with laughter and mischief. While they preferred rich, crispy potatoes and juicy roast chicken, Diana had her lighter version: skinless chicken, dry-baked potatoes, tossed in egg whites and paprika. She'd sit at the same table, watching them, smiling. McGrady remembered it as the first time he saw her stepping out of the shadows, not as a princess weighed down by royal expectations, but as a woman who had suffered deeply and was finally learning to live again. The day Diana left. It was an ordinary Sunday morning at Kensington Palace, the kitchen alive with the hum of routine. Darren McGrady, the royal chef, prepared a light meal for Princess Diana, expecting her return from Paris later that evening. She was set to reunite with her sons, Prince William and Harry, before they headed back to school. It was supposed to be a calm day: home-cooked food, family moments, and a brief respite from the chaos of royal life. Then, without warning, the television screen flickered, a breaking headline flashing across every channel. Princess Diana in car crash. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. McGrady stood frozen as the words became painfully clear. Princess Diana died at 36. At first, he thought it was a cruel prank, but as the news continued to pour in, the reality struck him like a tidal wave.
Good evening. The princess who spent her life in the relentless glare of the public eye died in a speeding car in Paris, apparently trying to evade pursuing.
Still in disbelief, McGrady rushed into work, clinging to the faint hope that perhaps the reports were mistaken or exaggerated. But when the palace sent over Diana's last will, he knew it was true. She would never walk through that door again. The dinner he had prepared, her meal, sat untouched, a symbol of everything that could have been. Within hours, the mood in the palace shifted from disbelief to devastation. The staff, fiercely loyal to Diana, were crushed. McGrady, too, felt the weight of the loss, her sudden death on August 31, 1997, in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, while being chased by paparazzi, reverberated across the world. In the days that followed, millions mourned. Over 2.5 billion people watched her funeral, and more than 60 million flowers were laid at the gates of Kensington Palace.
Swept up to Buckingham Palace, the limousine halted at the gates, and the Queen and Prince Philip got out to take in the mass of floral tributes.
About time you've come. You know, they can hear an awful lot of things that the crowd say. And then I think a woman actually...
Elton John's re-recording of Candle in the Wind became the unofficial anthem of a grieving world. But amidst this outpouring of grief, another tension simmered beneath the surface. Camilla Parker Bowles, still associated with the pain Diana had endured, reportedly wanted to attend the funeral. Some insiders suggested her presence might help ease public hostility, but Queen Elizabeth firmly insisted she stay away. McGrady, like many others, believed it was the right decision. He knew that Camilla's presence at the funeral would have been viewed as a betrayal, like attending a crime scene you helped create. The world wasn't mourning just a princess. They were mourning Diana herself, a woman who had captured hearts with her authenticity, compassion, and vulnerability. On the day of the funeral, McGrady stood quietly among the palace staff as the procession passed by. He had already visited Diana one last time at the Chapel Royal, where her body lay in peaceful repose. The silence in the room, the heavy sense of finality, was overwhelming. Yet in that shared moment of sorrow, surrounded by those who had cared for her, there was a flicker of peace. Even in death, Diana had brought the world together, not just in grief, but in love for the woman she had been. The grief would fade, but her memory, her strength, would endure. The quiet erasure of Diana. Darren McGrady had kept quiet for years, but the silence eventually fractured. What emerged wasn't anger, but memory. Honest, painful, and personal. On April 9, 2005, as the world tuned in to witness Prince Charles marry Camilla Parker Bowles at Windsor Guildhall, Darren couldn't bear to watch. "I didn't go. I didn't watch. I couldn't," he later admitted. His thoughts weren't on the ceremony, they were with Diana. By then, Darren had left royal service and settled in the US still. His connections to former palace staff remained. As the wedding approached, messages from former colleagues trickled in. A shared discomfort hung in the air. It wasn't just the ceremony, it was what it represented. The quiet rewriting of history. The wedding was just the beginning. When Camilla moved into Clarence House, then Buckingham Palace, Diana's legacy began to fade. Slowly, her influence was peeled away. Her favorite charities were no longer prioritized. Staff who'd worked closest with her were reassigned or dismissed. McGrady recalled how the palace environment changed. The warmth Diana brought, fresh flowers, laughter, her son's photos, gave way to sterility. Her decor was replaced. Even the signature scent of roses she loved disappeared. It wasn't redecorating, it was erasure. Then came the photographs. Diana's smiling face once graced many corridors. Slowly, they were moved. First to private spaces, then removed altogether. By 2008, not one remained in public view. "It was a full reset," McGrady has said, like she had never existed. He remembered a moment years earlier when Diana told him, "I'll never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be queen someday." Those words haunted him as Camilla stepped into the spotlight Diana once occupied. Years later, as Camilla became queen consort, Darren's silence became unbearable. "They got what they wanted in the end," he said, "but the cost was enormous." When he visited Diana's resting place at Althorpe, he was devastated. The lake was green with algae. The trees are untrimmed. Moss covered everything. People paid to visit the site. Yet the woman who changed the monarchy with her compassion was seemingly forgotten. "If I'd looked after her in life the way they've looked after her in death," he said, "I'd have been fired." Then came the words that shocked many. "She is pure evil." Darren didn't say it for attention. That's what came to mind seeing what had been done, not just to Diana the person, but Diana the memory. Diana brought light, barefoot mornings in the kitchen, spontaneous laughter, warmth. That light, McGrady said, was dimmed. It felt calculated, cold. Still, he supported the coronation, not out of fondness, but duty. But he stood firm. Moving forward doesn't mean burying the truth. His loyalty remains with Diana, not the edited version, but the real woman. After all she endured, the least I can do is protect her legacy, he said. But how did the public react after the shocking revelation? Stay tuned. Darren McGrady's truth sets off a royal reckoning. But the moment Darren McGrady spoke, everything shifted. The former royal chef's voice, calm, reflective, and unmistakably heartfelt, cut through decades of carefully maintained palace silence. Within hours of the interview's release, a digital tidal wave surged across social media. Finally, someone said it, read countless posts, as McGrady's raw account gave new life to long-held suspicions surrounding Princess Diana's suffering behind closed doors. Supporters of the late princess felt vindicated, their unspoken truths now echoed by someone who had stood in the palace kitchens, served Diana personally, and observed history unfold at arm's length. Praise for McGrady poured in at a relentless pace. Thousands hailed him as courageous, loyal, and overdue in his decision to speak. "Thank you for your honesty," one message read. "You've said what we've all felt for years." In response, online fan pages dedicated to Diana exploded with activity. Archived interviews, grainy footage of her public appearances, and quotes about her pain resurfaced, reminding the world that her story had never truly faded. Yet as the floodgates opened, not everyone welcomed the storm. Some questioned McGrady's timing. Why speak now, just after attending Queen Camilla's coronation? Critics accused him of exploiting the past, reopening wounds for personal gain. But defenders were swift to answer. "He stayed silent for 20 years, one user replied. "If anyone has earned the right to be heard, it's him." The ripple effect on Queen Camilla was immediate. Her decades-long effort to reframe herself from scandal to stability was now under siege. McGrady's words cast a long shadow over her public image, reigniting deep resentment among Diana's staunchest admirers. The royal family, staying true to its never complain, never explain philosophy, offered no response. But as McGrady's revelations continued to dominate headlines, palace silence felt less like strength and more like avoidance. With her approval ratings already fragile, Camilla's role as queen faces its most precarious test yet. McGrady insists he's not out for revenge, just truth. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," he said. Now, with the silence shattered, the world is watching who dares to speak next. But what do you think Darren's revelations really expose about Camilla's reign? Illusion or truth? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.